Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Governors of North Central states unanimously agree to adopt community policing in the face of rising cases of kidnapping, armed banditry and killings. APC national leader Bola TINUBU breaks silence on controversial Amotekun Regional Security Initiative, calls for dialogue over contending issues. LASSA fever threatens more lives in Delta, Kano, Enugu and Ondo states, with 21 deaths recorded so far. And Chinese authorities temporarily shut down public transport system in virus-hit Wuhan, where deadly coronavirus broke out. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, and Roku. While efforts are on to contain the spread of Lassa fever, the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria is asking passengers and other airport users in the country to comply with all quarantine procedures currently ongoing at the nation's airports. In a travel advisory, FAAN explains that the decision is aimed at protecting passengers from the epidemic ravaging some countries, particularly the coronavirus in China, and to prevent the spread of such communicable diseases to Nigeria. It adds that all the equipment and personnel used in combating the deadly Ebola virus in 2014 are in place at airports for the procedures. FAAN says it has, in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Health, confirmed the adequacy of the facilities at the nation's airports to prevent the importation of viruses through the airports. Now, since it broke out in China, the deadly virus has killed 9 people, with over 400 also reported to have been infected. The virus is highly communicable and has already spread to border countries such as Japan, Thailand, and South Korea. Let's cross over to Abuja now. Here's Ibrahim Adra. Ibrahim.
Many thanks indeed, Ijoma. Thank you for joining us in Abuja. Now, let's begin with legal matters. The scheduled arraignment of the former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mohammed Aduke, and 6 others suffered a setback today following the inability of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, to effect service of the charges on all defendants. The prosecutor, Bala Sanga, informed the court that the anti-graft agency is yet to serve all the defendants with the charges and expressed surprise at the presence of the defendants in court. Justice Idris Kutigi, after listening to counsels with the defendants and the prosecutor, adjourned the arraignment to Thursday, January the 23rd.
The immediate past Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Mohammed Aduke, sits patiently at an Abuja High Court in Gwagwalada as he awaits his arraignment on fraud charges instituted against him and 6 others by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. After waiting for a few minutes, the case is called, and the prosecutor immediately asks for an adjournment on the ground that he is yet to serve the defendants with the charges. The lawyer to the former Attorney General insists on proceeding with the arraignment to prove the innocence of his client, as he informs the court of his preparedness to waive his right to service. Other counsels adopt the same line of argument, but the judge explains that service of charges is a fundamental right of every defendant. He therefore adjourns the arraignment to Thursday, the 23rd of January. The lawyers to the former AGF, Nigeria Archip Exploration Limited, and the prosecutor speak on the arraignment.
We waived our right of service. He's been in their custody, and then they complained that they had not served him. I mean, if he had been outside, they could have said, oh, he was dodging service, but he's in their custody.
The individual defendants were not served with the charge. Most of them were served today, and it's a fundamental requirement that each defendant must be served.
We are equally shocked that the parties are in court. We have not yet, I can confirm that we did not serve the first, second, third, and fourth defendants.
The man at the center of it all describes the whole process as mere persecution as he expresses readiness to defend himself.
I was not served even though I've been illegally in their custody for the last 5 weeks.
So how ready are you for the arraignment tomorrow?
I came back to this country voluntarily to defend myself. As a former Attorney General, I'm very ready to defend myself. And I'm happy that this is an opportunity for Nigeria to know the persecution and the illegalities that are going on in this country. And that we must not allow a situation where political coloration dictate, the liberty of a human being.
The former Justice Minister and 6 others are to be arraigned on a 42-count charge bordering on graft and money laundering.
Let's now continue with our spotlight on the security situation in the country. The planned withdrawal of troops from some trouble zones in the country is still generating public outcry. And there are fears that civil unrest, killings, kidnapping and banditry may resume immediately the soldiers are out of sight. In our next report, our correspondent Orelua Shonebare examines the plan and indeed the fears.
One of the many meetings of President Muhammadu Buhari with security chiefs to evaluate his strategies, successes, and stumbling blocks. Mandated with the responsibility of briefing the outcome of the talks is the Chief of Naval Staff.
In the first quarter of next year, the civil authority will be preparing to take back those responsibilities as the military draws back on its forces in those areas to enable it focus its attention on other emerging threats.
Perhaps not the news many were expecting to hear. First, there was the matter of those billed to replace the armed forces.
It's okay.
Beyond the distractions of various crimes the civil authorities are saddled with, how many will be made available to focus effectively on the responsibility? And what sort of firepower will be at their disposal to battle the Boko Haram, kidnappers, bandits and rustlers terrorizing the region? The federal government later explained in a statement that the withdrawal of troops will be done after an assessment to determine areas where peace has returned to enable civil authorities to assume full control. But that decision is not going down well with some of the key players in the region.
I want to urge the federal government to drop the idea of withdrawing troops from some restive regions and places in Nigeria. The action is premature.
Since that plan went out, criminals have started flooding back to Benue State, and herdsmen have come in their numbers with sophisticated weapons. Even in my farm that is situated right in Makurdi, last weekend, we were attacked.
The federal government may not have bargained for the reactions to its planned withdrawal of troops from specific parts of the country, so it most likely boils down to the next few weeks to see if the plan works out or brings everyone back to the table. Orelu Ashonibare, Channels Television News.
I'm now being joined on the news at 10 by a security consultant, retired Major General Cecil Esekaibe, to look at some recent developments in the nation's security. General Esekai, thank you for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the Nigeria Police North Central Regional Security Summit, organized at the instance of the IGP, where today we had governors of the North Central State have agreed to adopt community policing. Now, it will appear that is the latest template for security in the country. What do you make of it?
Yes, it's a welcome development, and I think that is coming out at a very critical time to fill the gaps that have been created with the uproar of the security architecture in the southwestern Nigeria, the southwest zone. What you must know is that no matter the security arrangement you want to make in the states and local government level, they must be supervised by the police. Without the police supervision, you cannot just allow a group of people to come together to take the security of a state into their hands. No, because when you look at the complexities of carrying arms and all that, you start to wonder whether those guys that are being put together in those states are going to carry arms. And if they are going to carry arms, what is the authority for them to carry arms? So it's a welcome development for the North Central Initiative to get the police on board from onset so that they work out, a workable formula, to get it on board.
Now, there have been, sadly so, there have been an upsurge in spate of attacks recently across the country. What would you suggest that is done differently to curtail this?
You see, first and foremost, you must agree there's a problem. And when you agree there's a problem, you find out what the problem is all about. You see, when you find out what the problem is all about, there's this concept of know your enemy. You must know your enemy so that you know their strength, their method of operation, and to know how to fathom an effective strategy to curtail this situation. A situation where you have a one-size-fits-all to assessment of security situation and everybody making all sorts of comments. For instance, when you say herdsmen, how are you able to determine whether they are herdsmen? If you say there are some militias holding weapons, it's very correct. Herdsmen do not use weapons. Herdsmen that will know them in this country, the cattle rearers, they use sticks as we know them. So when you see an element who is carrying a sophisticated weapon, why will you call him a herdsman? So these are, bandits and militias that have come to invade some certain side of the country, and they must be treated as criminal that they are. We must not, cause another cause of confusion by giving a wrong appellation to, some group of people who are, threatening the survival of a country.
General, interesting time, wouldn't you say? There are times when we heard of over-militarization of the country, that you have the military doing work that civil authorities should do. So the government muted withdrawing military from some sports, and now we have the outcry from several places that, look, this is not the way to go. First, do you think it's right?
You see, I don't know the reason for the hyperbole and the innuendos about what the government wants to do. It's a normal thing. When the soldiers or the military, are done with a particular area, they move to some other areas. And you cannot leave those places ungoverned. Those places that have been liberated, that should not be left ungoverned, are now where for the Nigerian police and other security agencies like maybe the immigration and all, civil defense, to come in and fill the gap. When you don't fill that gap, there's always a resurgence, of that kind of counter-terrorism in those areas. So it is not new. It's just that it's been taken out of context. I mean, no sane government will withdraw military men from troubled areas. No sane government will want to put, the citizens in harm's way. So I think there is, a wrong misconception of what the federal government wants to do. Normally, and it's done everywhere, when the military has liberated an area, they leave it for the police and other, the security agencies to hold sway so that governance can come back to those places.
Always a pleasure for your input. Thank you so much for coming on the news at 10.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Security consultant, retired Major General Cecily Sekaigbe, with us on the news at 10. Now, we'll take a break. When we return, federal government's first bond for the year oversubscribed as Debt Management Office offers 5, 10, and 30-year instruments at the auction. Do join us again.